Emily. Welcome to Dare Me to Prosper.
Hello, Avery. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, I'm thrilled that you're here. I love your podcast and I love what you do. And I just find you to be a super authentic and down to earth person. And so I felt like you were just a great fit for this topic. And I feel like you'll really resonate with people. You really resonated with me. So I feel like I'm excited to hear all about your business and what you do. Because you do mentorship, you do spiritual and business mentorship, Akashic records, light language, helping people align with their gifts, and all sorts of things. I mean, just looking at your website, you offer tons of really cool services, right?
Yes, lots going on here in the Emily the Mystic universe to talk about.
I love it. Well, to get started, I would love to hear, because I know I saw on your website, that you, and this was one of my favorite things, because I feel like sometimes it just makes it a little bit more relatable, but you said you didn't always grow up as a spiritual person, right? This was something you kind of found in your adulthood. So what did that journey kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so yes and no. I grew up in a Roman Catholic household when I was growing up, but I've always felt very connected to a higher power, something outside of myself. And I became obsessed with new age topics and spiritual topics when I was pretty young. I bought my first tarot deck when I was 11 years old. I became
I love that.
obsessed with astrology when I was like 11, 12, 13. When you're kind of at that age when you're, starting to get interested in boys and you have crushes and you're like, oh, I want to know if this person is, going to be a good, my future husband.
Yes, that's so
sort of
funny
thing.
you say that, because my daughter is about to turn 11 and she is totally really into that stuff, into the tarot, astrology, and she's totally in that phase. So I can picture exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So it just became kind of like a hobby, like something that I was passionate about and interested in as a kid, but I was in Catholic school. So I couldn't bring those books to school. I was in a very strict school system. But my parents, my mom especially, is very open-minded. So she was the one that was buying the books for me and encouraging my interests and all sorts of things like that. And as I grew up, I really wanted to fit in, as we often do. I was an artist. I played the flute, so I was a little bit of a band kid. So because I was sort of this like artsy fartsy girl, I wanted to fit in and be popular and be cool. So I kind of pushed the spiritual stuff aside. And in order to fit in order to like be this person that I thought other people wanted me to be. And that was kind of the path that I followed. Sort of, I call it the path of the false self a little bit in a way.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Because I wanted everybody else to like me. And so I pursued this path. I went to college to study business and marketing because I was told by my parents and society that was what was going to get me a job, even though I had this artist within me who just wanted to paint and, create artwork and like pursue, the astrology and things like that. I pursued this very masculine oriented, rigorous kind of business path, which led me eventually to getting a corporate 9-to-5 job, albeit in a bit of an artistic, creative field. I worked in the fashion industry. And that corporate job was something that really cracked me wide open, because on paper, I had, in my early 20s, everything that we should have, right? I had the boyfriend, I had this fancy corporate job, I was traveling to New York twice a week, I was doing all of these things that, we are told that is what we measure up to success. And yet I was so anxious. I was having panic attacks in the middle of the night. I found myself just totally disconnected from who I am on the inside, because I was so busy with that job.
Yeah.
And what happened was the pandemic.
Right? I feel like so many people will relate to that.
I started working from home 5 days a week, and that all of a sudden gave me this time back to focus on myself and to kind of find myself again and pursue my hobbies and interests again. And what I should also say is that leading up to this, at the beginning of 2020, in January specifically, I became really interested in the online coaching space, specifically in the online health and fitness coaching space, because the way that I navigated the panic and the anxiety that I was feeling was through getting myself in the gym and weightlifting and strength training. And I found health and fitness to be the thing that brought me relief. And because it had helped me so much, I felt passionate at that time about helping other people relieving their stress. And I saw this opportunity and I feel like the online coaching industry was really at its infancy at the time, because I saw people my age who are making YouTube videos and creating online content about health and fitness. And I was like, that looks amazing. If I could do that and make a living and be at home, like, how cool would that be? So I signed up to get the personal training certification. I invested in my first business coach, and then the world shut down. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can focus on building this business. I may never have to go to work again. I was so motivated by that passion and that drive to help people, and also not having to go back to work, that I started down this very holistic path, and it led me back to those interests and those passions that I had in childhood.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that is such a relatable story. Like, it's uniquely you, but it's also just so many bits of that I feel like we can relate to. Like, first of all, I just want to say you're clearly very ambitious. And so I really admire that. You know, even your fashion job, going to New York twice a week, that's crazy. You know, that it's clear that no matter what you were doing, you were going to be successful at it, you know, successful in a sense. Totally. But that's just, I feel like I have a similar story with just in 2020, like that was when, we all just had time. We had time to go inside and to reflect and, you know, explore things that we didn't usually have time to explore. And so I find that really relatable. And just, you know, again, what you were saying, and I think this is going to be a big probably theme in our discussion, but that idea of kind of shoving down that like spiritual inclination because we want to fit in, because we're worried about what other people around us are going to think or how they're going to feel, especially if, like you mentioned, and I had a similar experience in a more like religious setting. It's very, you know, it feels like, ooh, can't touch that. Don't want to break the rules. Don't want to, you know, whatever it is. It's great too that you had supportive parents. I did as well. So I really love that. Okay. So, you know, so how did it go from kind of your, you know, your exercise and fitness, holistic health into kind of where you are now with like Akashic records and light language and all these like really deep topics and gifts, and how you like started tapping into that?
Yeah, so it all really kicked off with a reading that I had from someone else Memorial Day weekend. So we're like, it's funny because it's almost the anniversary of that. Memorial Day weekend of 2020, I had signed up for a reading with this lady who was, I had heard about her on a podcast. She's a very popular shaman, still is doing her readings. And
what's her name?
Monica Lawson.
Okay.
And I had never had a reading. By the way, I had never had a reading from someone else before. Maybe astrology, but I had never had like a psychic, you know, intuitive reading. So this was my first experience with that. And Monica said something to me that literally I felt like I was taken out of my body, and simultaneously like almost was so in my body that I almost fell out of my chair. She said to me, she goes, Emily, did you know that you can talk to the other side? And I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean I can talk to the other side? She was like, yeah, you can communicate with loved ones who've passed. And I said, wow. I was in total shock and disbelief.
So you had never had an experience at that point where you felt like, oh, I'm communicating with somebody on the other side.
Well, here's the thing. I had, and all of the puzzle pieces started to come together. Okay. All of the little the weird threads from my life started to come together and weave together and make sense. So I am someone who's been through a lot of grief in my life. I've lost a lot of loved ones. All of my grandparents are on the other side. I've lost an uncle. I've lost a cousin. Specifically, I went through a really hard time in 2017 when my uncle and my cousin passed within 6 weeks of each other. And it was super traumatic. And my uncle, his energy, looking back, he was one of the main things that got me through those hard times at my last job. I would be driving on my way to work, and there was a specific song that I connected with him that when it would come on my shuffle on Spotify, I would feel my uncle's energy, and I like get emotional thinking about it. I would feel him come in, and I would be like, it's okay, like Uncle Joe's with me. It's okay. I'm going to get through this day. It's going to be okay. And so when this shaman in the reading told me, like, you can connect with loved ones on the other side, all of these little experiences that I had with connecting with my uncle's energy, the day that he passed also too, I have to say, was really remarkable because my mom always had this story that when other loved ones in the family passed, that there would be a door that would slam in the house, indicating that they were gone. And when my uncle passed away, there was a door that slammed in my house that day. And I hadn't even gotten the news from my parents yet. And I was like, I know that this is it. Like this, he's gone. He's crossed over. But again, this is 2017. So this is like leading up to this news that I got in 2020. I had no idea. But then when I think about all of these signs from my loved ones, I'm like, oh yeah, like they've been communicating with me for a long time.
It's almost like subconsciously you kind of knew, but you hadn't like put words to it yet.
Exactly.
Is that kind of, okay.
Exactly. I knew it all along. So what happened was, that reading led me to becoming really interested in these gifts and abilities that this shaman was telling me about, that I wanted to learn more about my psychic gifts and my intuition. And it reminded me of those childhood experiences when I would be at Barnes & Noble and I would see these books about psychic children and think to myself, oh, like, am I an indigo psychic child? Like, I want someone to tell me that I am, but obviously that never happened. And so what I did was I signed up for a variety of different spiritual courses, including a mediumship course, which is connecting with loved ones on the other side. And those courses, I started having these crazy spiritual experiences with being able to connect with other people's loved ones, which was what led me to the passion of doing readings for people. And what I ended up doing was the few fitness coaching clients that I had, who were friends, by the way. I hadn't gotten that far in the fitness business, but I did have a few clients during the pandemic. Yeah. And I started doing mediumship readings for them, which led me to offering free mediumship readings through my Instagram platform, which is where I had started the health and fitness business. And the readings were so popular and people were loving them. I was like, oh my gosh, well, I guess this is my thing. So doing the readings for other people was what led me to investing in more spiritual courses, and doing more spiritual courses led me down this whole like shadow work, self-healing journey. And as I unpacked these layers of my inauthentic self and started remembering who I really am, I started becoming aware of like, I kind of saw my whole life flash before my eyes, all of these interests, all of these passions, all of these things that I've loved, and realized it makes so much sense for me to be this person, to do this work for other people. Like, I have to be the one to do this. Maybe I'm not like a third generation psychic, or maybe I didn't grow up seeing, my dead loved ones in my childhood bedroom, but I have had these like very beautiful, subtle spiritual experiences. And what if I get to do this for other people? What if I get to help other people facilitate those experiences for themselves too? And so I started working with a spiritual business mentor. I created my first ever spiritual course, which was about intuition development, that I sold through the fitness coaching platform. And I pivoted my business, and the rest is history.
That is amazing. I love that story. And I think that I love what you said about, this whole idea about not really recognizing your gifts because maybe they were subtle, or maybe, I feel like we have this kind of idea that if you can only be gifted if it's like you're seeing a full-bodied ghost or apparition in your bedroom.
Yeah.
If it's not this extreme experience, then it's not really a spiritual gift, because you hear about people who have very visceral, very visual, whatever it is. And so you think, well, I don't have that. When I think there's so many of us, because myself included, have a similar sort of trajectory where it's subtle. And you before you really know how to put words to it, you just think, is this, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Was that a visit with a loved one, or was it just a dream? Or was it just, am I making this up in my mind, or did I really hear that? And I think so many people have a hard time trusting those gifts and trusting that it's actually happening and not, I just made it up, or it was just a dream, or whatever it happens to be. And so I think that's perfect. And it's a great example of like, once you start trusting your gifts and leaning into it and embodying like, no, this is who I am. I'm just remembering, I'm just waking up again, like remembering all of these things. It's like, then it really becomes more real. And like, the more you trust it and lean into it, the more vivid it becomes, and the more,
Absolutely.
So I love that. I think that's super relatable. So when you left your job, how long was that transition? Like you said, you went home in 2020. So when did you actually leave corporate and kind of start, at the point where you could lean into just your business?
Yeah, so I set a goal for myself that I really wanted to leave my corporate job in Q1 of 2021.
Okay.
And
quick.
Yeah, very quick. Like I had that in mind, and I will say too, like working from home, that job was still causing me a lot of internal stress and pain. And I was just like, I literally can't do this anymore. Also, I should say this was at the start of, I was working in corporate retail. This was the start of the first tariff war. So I was having to deal with the tariff war in my corporate retail job. And I was like, none of this. This is nonsense. I don't want to have to deal with like literally any of this. It was like my business has to work. My business just has to work. Like I have decided that my business is going to work, and that is it. And I am going to leave the job and we're going to see what happens. So I had a very crazy series of events where someone very close to me was diagnosed with cancer. And this is at the end of 2020. In the midst of the pandemic. So, and I had this goal in mind, like I'm going to quit my corporate job in Q1. I got this news about this loved one, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, do I still leave? What do I do? And I was like, I have to honor myself. I have to do this. I'm ready to do this. I've built the foundation of the business. At the beginning of 2021, I launched my new brand, Emily the Mystic, and the brand was so successful that I knew within every cell of my being, despite this loved one's diagnosis, I have to do what I know that I need to do. So I had this like a final exit interview with my boss at the time. I gave her the news. I told her, I was like, basically, I'm like Teresa Caputo. You don't know this about me. You don't know this
Not
about
to drop
me.
a bomb on you, but
I've become sort of this Teresa Caputo on the internet, and like I have
that.
to like pursue that. She was like, okay, all right, okay, goodbye.
So funny.
So I quit the job. I packed up my work laptop. I dropped it off at FedEx. I drove home to be with my family. I lived with my parents for several weeks while my loved one was going through the cancer surgery. And I had to work on the business. I focused on the business. And what's so crazy is that beginning of that 2021, I had made maybe $200 on a mediumship reading, right? Like I wasn't making a ton of money.
So when you left corporate, you were just making like $200.
I left on a $200 and a prayer. I kid you not.
I love that though. I
100%.
love that.
And I kid you not, I got a tax refund. In March of 2021. I left in February. I got a tax refund in March of 2021 for the exact amount of money that I needed to pay my bills in March of that year.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, how the universe works.
I know.
Oh, it's so cool.
And was able to replace my corporate income in April of 2021 and have been able to keep up the momentum with that.
That's amazing. So within 2 months, you had replaced your corporate salary.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What do you like, real briefly, what do you feel like were the main sort of, whether it's energetically or like physical tasks, like what were kind of the main things that you really just were like, I'm going to focus on these things while I'm getting this business up and running, especially because, again, super relatable. A lot of people, things are tight. The economy is awful. You know, it's rough to start a business right now. And so a lot of people do have that pressure of like, I really want to get this moving as quick as possible. What do you feel like was most helpful for you when you were doing that quickly?
I would say the first thing was being so confident in my brand vision. I saw this whole Emily the Mystic vision so clearly in my head, the colors, the whole vibe, the whole presence that I wanted to invite people in. And I wasn't seeing anything else in the Instagram space or the online space that even matched it. And I was like, this is so clear to me. This is what I have to pursue. And I had at the end of 2020, I had started, and I know this is a fast trajectory, but I had already started teaching intuition to other people because I felt really good about how I had taken myself from 0 to psychic in like 7 months. And I was like, I need to teach this to other people because I'm not seeing anyone else at the time teach this. So I started this psychic development course that I was charging like, I don't know, $400 for. And so I had this course, I had my readings, I had my brand vision, and I was consistent with showing up on social media every single day. And I built myself a little website, and I went all in on those small offers that I had, and I brought enough people into the readings and the course that I was able to replace my corporate income.
Oh, I love that so much. And that's so encouraging to me, and I'm sure people that are listening, because I think a lot of people are scared to do that. But I love what you said, because I think that is such an important part, is you were already embodying the energy. You were already in the mindset, the headspace of like, no, I can do this. I'm going to honor my gifts. I'm going to go all in. And, you know, like, and I'm sure you had some fears or doubts or whatever, like we all do, but for the most part, like you were in that space of like, no, this is going to work and it's going to be fine. And I feel like that is such a big part of it, of really aligning with the energy of receiving and abundance, which goes into my next question I was going to ask you is, you know, as a mentor for people who are, you know, growing spiritual businesses, what do you feel like is one of the most common like money blocks or abundance blocks or things that people kind of really struggle with, or anything kind of in that area? What do you feel like you see the most? Yeah,
the number one thing is visibility.
And
people don't think that that's what's holding them back. But then I have a conversation with my clients and they're like, well, I haven't really told my parents that this is what I want to do. And that sounds silly, but those little things where you're like, well, I haven't really told my spouse that, like, I'm a witch, you know? And I'm like,
I get it. Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, and I had to have those conversations with my boyfriend now of 10 years. I had to have those conversations with my parents, with my good friends, told them like, hey, I'm a medium. I can talk to the other side. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm very grateful because all of those people, the people who are the most important to me, looked at me and they were like, that makes sense.
Yeah. I can see it.
I can see it. Like, yeah, that's you. Yeah, like, of course, that's you. So it was easy for me to build that visibility, and that gave me the confidence and the poise to be able to like show up on social media and talk to strangers about it.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. You have to be really consistent with it. And I think most people post and ghost. They show up once or twice, and then they're like, I don't know. And but then you can't build an audience. And by the way, when I quit my corporate job, I had been building an audience on Instagram for over a year. So I had built up over 1,000 Instagram followers, which isn't a ton, you know?
Right.
And I had the website, like I had been building the things behind the scenes to support me when I quit. So I wasn't just quitting with like 200 Instagram followers and like no one to buy my services. Yeah. I say visibility is that big block because you have to have an audience to buy things from you. If you don't.
Great point. Yeah.
If you don't, then
they go hand in hand. Yeah.
you need to create the portals of money to be able to bring the money in, to receive the money. So if you don't have the portals of money through the clients or the audience or the referral network of people, then it may be a little bit more challenging to bring in the money that you want.
That's such a good point, because I do, and this is why you're the perfect person for this conversation, because you can already tell how, like, I love that you told your boss, like, yeah, I've been meeting him. I know you didn't know this about me, but because I think even somebody like a boss that's not even like in your inner circle, that is probably one of the last people that other people would want to tell, you know, because it feels scary. And so I think that's something, again, so many people, myself included, are like, I don't know, how do I share this? And so I love that you're just like, own it, just show up and, you know, say, this is who I am. Because that's part of embodying that mindset, is letting go of the fear where, like, maybe you're embodying it, but I'm still afraid to tell my spouse, or I'm still afraid to tell my parents, you know, and just showing up. Like, I had a similar kind of situation, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, but my husband was a pastor, a Christian pastor for a long time. And so I kind of made that jump from Christianity to like this more spiritual journry while I was a pastor's wife, quote unquote.
Whoa,
and so that was a big, where it was like, not only do I know that this will not go over super great with this audience, but like, he could lose his job if this feels unsteady to them. And so like, and for everybody, it might not be that serious. It might just be afraid of judgment, but it is such a like difficult topic. And I feel like, that makes perfect sense why that is such a big thing that you see, you know. So thankfully, I'm in a space now where I don't have to worry about that. Like, there's no, you know, and he's very supportive. Even if we're like not eye to eye on every single little thing, he's very supportive of me. And most, if not all of my family is aware of, you know, what I'm doing now. But even then, I would say I still have a few like areas where maybe I do feel a little bit shy to be like, no, I'm doing this. I recently started offering psychic readings. And just a similar thing where it was like, it was very subtle. And I had somebody initially reach out to me and say, do you do one-on-one channeling, like readings? And I was like, no, I don't. I do it for myself. I'm comfortable communicating for myself. I don't feel super confident doing that yet, though. And then I felt like Spirit in a meditation was like, no, you need to revisit that. You need to go revisit and try again. And so I just have started kind of doing that. And so I love your confidence here, because I think that is genuinely what people need to know, is just be like, you can't hide from it.
And I think it's so interesting we're talking about this, because I've had this like realization actually just over this past weekend, that whenever I feel resistant to something or resistant to my next steps or something I'm manifesting, a big part of it for me is, where am I not being honest?
I love that.
And what am I not being honest about? Because when I am hiding in sort of like this half space of I know internally, like, this is what I want and who I want to be, but maybe I'm not talking about it, or I'm not communicating it, or I'm not being honest with people, that energy is what's creating kind of a veil and creating something that I'm hiding behind.
And almost probably like blocking your throat chakra as well.
100%.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's such a great point. And I think a really great like question to ask too. I want to start doing that. Like, okay, am I hiding from something? Am I not being honest somewhere? Like, what areas, you know, might that blocked energy be kind of holding me back, and I'm not, you know, really aware of it. So, I mean, and that kind of goes into kind of what I was going to ask you about, like energetically aligning with receiving and abundance in your business. So really, I mean, you can add to that if you want, but right, what I'm hearing is, I think it's a lot of that mindset of just embodying, being honest, you know, stepping into that sort of like similar manifesting space where you're, you know, you're matching the frequency and you're being open to it. Would you say, is there anything else you would add about like when you think about stepping into that mindset for your business?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I feel too that because the online coaching space has grown so much since the pandemic, I will admit and say that it is a little bit more challenging to grow a business quickly in this market than it was 5 years ago. Yeah. So in this market, you have to really own your specialty. You have to figure out what your spiritual X factor is. That's what I work with on my clients.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, and I'm not, Avery, I'm not saying this to you specifically. This is just like an overall message.
Say it.
You have to be so clear on your specialty. You can't just be the regular psychic girl next door. You know, you have to be so clear on who you are and how you want to help people. Because again, when you have that clear brand vision and that clear vision of like who your client is and your specialty and your little tiny niche corner of the marketplace, that's when you are really successful. And that's what I see time and time again with people. And again, it's about that honesty and that authenticity, that when you're no longer generalizing yourself and trying to appeal to everybody, that's when you really hit home. Your messaging hits home, your branding hits home, and people are like, ooh, this is cool. Like, this is new. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I'm curious. And that's how the money comes in.
I love that. And I noticed that right away, just like looking at your website and your offerings is, you know, you do have these very specific like things that you are working with people like Akashic Records and light language. And that's not something that everybody is doing, you know, it's very like specific, and you've got lots of other stuff as well. But that was something that stood out to me is like, oh, she knows what her area is. She knows what her specialty is. And like, that's specifically what she's helping people with. And you show up unapologetically, you know, in that space. And so I think you're already demonstrating, you know, practicing what you preach very well. So I love that. I think that's a really good reminder too, because you're right. And it is, you know, and I love that it's becoming more popular because I love that so many people are really opening themselves up to remembering who they really are in this spiritual journey. And I love that. I hope that we continue to see more of that. But of course, and I like to think of it as like, you know, the more that we kind of embody the right energy, the more we'll share kind of this collective, how would I even say, just like collectiveness and not competition, but we're kind of like, we're all serving, collaborating and serving each other's needs in different ways. So, you know, we don't even have to think of it as like, you know, being hard to be visible or whatnot. But at the same time, like, I think kind of niching down, you know, because people do have specific needs and specific things that they're looking for. I think that's just such great advice. I love that. And I think you embody that so well.
Yeah. And I just want to make one more point on that too, which is I'm not trying to tell you to be someone that you're not, to like fit into this busy marketplace, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you to really hone in on who are you in the marketplace? Like what's going on within you that needs to be shared, that needs to be, that your ideal client needs to hear from you. Because when you step into that energy, it's the who you are-ness, the authenticity-ness, then you stand out. Because that's who you were designed to be, you know?
Right, your unique frequency is kind of like getting to shine. Yeah, totally. I love that. I love that. Do you, when you are kind of like either working with a client or when you're making content or whatever, do you ever find yourself tempted? Because I know this is something that I have to kind of check myself with, and I thought maybe other people are feeling this as well, but do you ever feel tempted or where you have to balance yourself with like, am I performing or am I really like speaking from my truth right now? You know, did you ever have that tendency? You seem really naturally authentic, so I'm not saying that I think you're that way, but I'm just wondering, you know, because I feel like sometimes that's something that I do.
Oh, 100%. That's been a big thing that I've had to navigate. And it's not necessarily a social media thing because I enjoy creating content for social media. It's more of the readings because I still do a lot of one single sessions where sometimes you feel like you're a bit of a performance monkey. For people who like want to play the psychic games with you and they're a little skeptical and they like want you to prove yourself to them.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
in a phase with my business where I don't have tolerance for that anymore. I'm just not interested in catering to someone who's like in that energy.
Unapologetic. Yeah.
So So
I love it.
And it's a lot, right? Like it's a lot to have to show up on Zoom calls for hours a day to be able to support people. So I no longer am working with the people who like need the convincing in order to make the money.
How do you filter those people out, or how do you catch that kind of before you work with them?
It's a price point issue. Okay. So especially in the spiritual space, the more you increase your prices in congruence with you and your confidence and your gifts and how you feel, you start to weed out the people who just want the garden variety next door psychic to predict the next 6 months of their life people.
That makes total sense.
And you start working with the people who are more elevated and are they already they are desiring a spiritual service to contribute to their growth and not to tell them what to do.
Yeah. They understand what they're getting.
Yeah.
They understand the value, and they understand how
Yeah.
energy works and how readings work. Yes. And
exactly.
that you're not a trick monkey.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's good, I think, for people to hear too. Because I think, again, like going back to the kind of abundance mindset at charging and like numbers, that like figuring out what to charge for what services, again, I think that's another thing where people are like, oh, how do I keep my integrity and price this at a point where it's because we get in our heads about it and we think, well,
Totally.
I want to be honest and have integrity and not be greedy. But also we recognize that like the price point matters, and that, people are going to align with the specific price point that is most, a match to what we're offering. And so it's not even about the amount of money necessarily as it is like the frequency of the mindset behind that price point. Would you say?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, okay, another thing that I wanted to ask that I'm curious about, because again, we've talked about this just a little bit, but when it comes to balancing kind of your intuition around your business, so say when you're like pivoting or making business decisions versus like being in the more logical space of like, this is a business decision, because of course every business has all of the like very logical, very practical side of it. Do you ever find that those things kind of are in contrast with one another, like something that you feel intuitively and you're not sure if it aligns logistically or vice versa? Do you ever struggle with that?
Yes, 100%. I am not someone who can sit down in front of a calendar and plan my business strategy out for a year, because it changes 20 million different times throughout the course of the year. So I have to have this balance of, yes, I do need structure in my business, because that is where I do make the consistent money, is having a flow with my offers and services and advertising something new every single month. But at the same time, I have to create the space for the fun, intuitive hits and directions that do come through. And for me, the way that my and I'm really realizing this now looking back with time, the intuitive nudges come through clients and they come through other people, is what I'm trying to say. I get nudged in a direction, or I'm asked to do something, or I'm asked if I want to collaborate on something, or I reach out and have a reading with like a human design person because I feel guided. And then it tells me the exact thing that I need to hear that helps lead me in the direction that I need to go in. And yes, of course, I am like using my own channel, and I do connect with my guides daily. So that is a part of the process. But it's so funny because the way that I see my life and my reality now is that the dots always connect. And if I don't quite know what the answer is to the business problem today, I wait for it. I don't reach out and look for it.
That's great advice.
I wait for it because I will be guided or nudged to sign up for the thing, or a client will send me a message in my inbox, or something will happen that gives me the answer that I need. Does that make sense?
I love that. Yes, yes. I think that's great too, because again, kind of like what we were saying before, I think people might almost overemphasize how their spiritual nudges or intuition might come in. Like it's got to be this big, vision or something that's just really dramatic. And you're kind of like exhibiting that, no, these things often just really overlap and they come together. And that's what makes it, that aligns. This thing and this thing go together. If I'm not clear, I'll sit back and wait. I just haven't got all the information yet. And it can be very just like simplistic. And it kind of goes back to that idea of, especially for people who are really new to maybe their spiritual journey, or they're thinking about starting a spiritual business. Because again, my podcast is really geared towards people who are in the very beginning stages of like, what do I even think about this? I'm just putting my toe in, And so I think there can be some confusion around like, does it have to be this big thing? Or really, can a lot of those intuitive messages just be like the thoughts, the little voice in the back of your head, those little messages that you maybe underestimate? And so, you're saying like those definitely kind of go hand in hand. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Do you feel like, speaking of messages and intuition, you've gotten any like big messages or downloads or just intuitive thoughts that really are, and I guess you would kind of, as you mentioned in the beginning, when you first got started on your business, I'm sure this was a big part of it, but do you feel like there was ever kind of a turning point or a drastic moment where it was like you received information or you felt something was like, this is something I need to follow, other than just like starting the business in the beginning?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another important point to say is that I do have moments in breath work or in meditation or in some kind of spiritual practice where I'm like shown the next vision of like where I'm going next. And having that next vision is important to say because then I look out for the little nudges and guidance that guide me towards that next thing that I'm working on manifesting. So a really good example of that is in 2021, like late 2020 into 2021, that's when I got this message about the Akashic Records. And I had this like really deep intuitive knowing that that's what I needed to pursue next, which led me to finding a teacher who taught the records, who taught me the records. And then I went on a big journey with that for 2 years. And then I had another big vision where I was told that, and this was specifically happening in a breathwork journey, I was told by my guides that I need to step away from that teacher that I was working with in that community and start teaching the records myself and start offering a program where I could put my own spin on teaching my clients how to use the Akashic Records. So that's a really good example of like,
this is how it came in.
Yes.
So when you first got that information, was it like during a meditation or like how, like what's a little bit more detail about like what that looked like, if you remember?
Yeah. So that specific moment was in a breathwork journey. And I had set the intention that I wanted to be shown anything that was creating resistance and blocking me from the success that I wanted in my business. And the guides came in so clearly and they showed me an image of my spiritual teacher's face that I was working with. And they were like, you cannot work with this person anymore, which is a whole story for another time.
Okay.
Because that, I had to leave that spiritual community and I was shown very clearly by my guides in this breathwork journey that I needed to do that. And at the time I wasn't ready. I was not ready.
That was going to be my next question was, did it feel like a sudden, like, you know, like, I was already going to do that or,
Yeah, it was a huge awakening moment because, and another thing I'll say is that when I have these bigger intuitive downloads like that, then I kind of look back and I'm like, okay, I can see the little nudges where there were things that were happening where I was kind of shown in my day-to-day life where this person was not a good match for me anymore. And there were weird things going on in this person's community. And I was like, all right, I see the journey. So for me, I sort of, when I get these big downloads, there's maybe a couple days of resistance where I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I kind of work my way up to it. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I get it now. So as I work through that resistance and then I listen to the little nudges and the little connections that other people kind of bring into my world, and then I follow the breadcrumbs and it leads me to the big actions that get me to where I want to go.
That's such a good example. And I love, thank you for giving us like grounded examples because I think so many people are like, what does that look like? Because again, just the doubts, you know, and I had, like I said, a similar experience where it was like somebody asked me, I was like, no, you know, that I don't do that, you know, and it wasn't until like I was in a meditation talking with my guys, they were like, no, you actually revisit that. And then it takes time to work through those blocks of like, oh, are you sure? Did I make this? Am I hearing that right? Are we sure about that? You know, like, and almost, you know, an identity shift too of going from, especially like what you're saying, where you're going to the teacher, you're moving into the teacher position with something new. So you almost have to kind of change that over to that energy and start embodying that energy, which is a big shift of like, oh, okay, I'm going to step in. Now I'm stepping kind of up and in to this new role. And that's like, it's a totally different energy, but it's, so it makes sense that it might take a day or two and you kind of have to sit with it. You don't have to, you know, immediately jump ship right away. You know, you can sit with it and kind of feel it out. So I love that. It's a perfect example. So what do you feel like is something, or maybe the first thing, if there's somebody who's maybe new to their spiritual journey, or they are a little bit into it, but they're considering starting a spiritual business, what would you say is a great place, like first steps to kind of start, like this is what you need to nail down first and foremost?
You need to start nailing down who your brand presence and identity is going to be in the social media space, and choosing a platform that you enjoy being on to spread your message.
Ooh, I like
so that. You need to pick a platform that is authentic to you, that you're going to enjoy using. So for me, that's been Instagram. I'm not a TikTok girly. I wish I was. It just has
I'm not exact opposite. I'm like,
really?
I'm a TikTok girly. I love looking on Instagram. I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
But like showing up on Instagram for whatever reason, I feel much more like not myself.
100%.
It's really weird. Yeah.
And that's a good example. So you have to pick a platform where you're going to want to be, and you're going to want to spend your time, because you're going to be spending a lot of time there. Mm-hmm. And then once you have your platform, and by the way, this is what you need to do first. You don't need to create the course. You don't need to create the offer. Okay? Mm-hmm. You don't need to create the service to sell first. You have to create the audience first.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
And I think a lot of people are like, well, I need to have something to sell if I'm going to like show up. No, share your journey. Talk about who you are. Talk about your story. Start creating content. Start learning how to create content. Yeah. And let that be your platform. You don't have to sell anything right away. Mm-hmm. Because again, like I was saying earlier, in order to make the money and to sell the services, you need people to sell to. So if you don't have that, we need to start with creating the audience. Right. And if you don't know what like your brand vision is yet, that's okay. Just show up as you. Just start talking about what,
or meet with a spiritual mentor like you,
or meet with a mentor who can reflect back to you like what I'm seeing, because I have so many tools. I work with human design, I work with astrology, I work with so many modalities, the records, to help reflect back to you like what your spiritual X factor, what your niche should be. And then that way, once you have that clear vision, then you can really feel good about showing up and being consistent with your content creation.
That's such good advice. Yeah. Because I think too, because spirituality, and I think a lot of people that are almost like maybe a little bit more open-minded towards spirituality can be people who are naturally more creative or more maybe type B, not exclusively, but just, that more like flowy, creative sort of personality. And so sometimes they want to dive right into the like just making stuff and like just creating and thinking about brand colors and thinking about a website, before they've even built up the audience. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the audience is really like the ticket. You're going to need time to connect with people and display who you are and what your story is, before anybody will consider buying from you, because you're a stranger to them, like warming up to you. Mm-hmm. So I love that. I feel like this episode is just packed with advice. Great advice. I love it. Are there any like mistakes or mishaps that you faced in the beginning that now you look back on and are like, oh, that was, I wouldn't do that again, but it really helped me, learn and get where I am today? Yeah,
two big things. Number one, well, for whatever reason, these are the two things that are coming forward. You don't need to make the website. First of all, I created 3 different websites. I spent so much time learning how to build a website. And
it's time consuming.
It's time consuming. So time consuming. Waste your time and energy on that. There are easy ways now where you can have people, once you get to the point where you're ready to sell something, you can use Calendly, you can use Acuity, which are calendar softwares, you can use StanStore. There's so many like little easy software systems that you can use to connect, to create a product to sell. So again, you don't need to create the fancy website first of all. Like give yourself a year before you even like decide to go. Because
that's what everybody runs to first. I guarantee you there was somebody that was like, oh, I was going to do that first. So I'm glad you said that.
And then number 2 is don't invest your money in everything. I spent tens of thousands of dollars, okay, on all the business coaches, all of the spiritual coaches. And yes, I do feel that helped me have the accelerated timeline, because I was learning so much at once that I was kind of forced into like, needing to make the money back that I had invested in. But use your discernment, and please, for the love of God, with whatever you're learning from other people, make it your own, because that is another big block that I see with people, is that they are just regurgitating what they see their spiritual teacher doing. They're reposting, they're using the same languaging that their teacher is using, or they're just taking what they learned in this person's course that they bought yesterday and talking about it on their story. And I'm like, that is not you.
Yes,
I want to know what Amanda has to say. I don't want to know about what your spiritual teacher has to say.
Right.
And I even see my clients doing that, like creating similar versions of what I do. I'm like, no, it's not you. And I'm not offended if you copy me. Like, I'm not triggered by that. I just want you to succeed. And I'm like, I just want to know what Amanda has to say,
Yeah, because it goes back to, like, that's the whole thing, is like, you as a person, like, came here. Each person came here with a specific, with certain gifts, with certain ways that they are uniquely able to help. And so I think a lot of us we get into this space and it's new and it's a little intimidating, and we go, well, I just want to show up right, and I just want to make sure I'm doing it right, so I'm just going to copy this person, totally missing exactly what you're saying, that really, the true gifts and the true success and, like, where we're going to find the abundance and be the most aligned is not doing what other people are doing, but doing uniquely what we are here to do, our unique voice. Even if it's similar to what other people are doing, or we're offering similar things, it's like, each person has a specific, unique signature frequency that other people are going to be drawn to. So it's like, the more that you're tuned into your own frequency, the more you'll attract the exact right people who are a match for you. I'm like preaching to myself as I'm saying this, but yeah.
And I have a tip too. If someone's listening who's like, I don't even know where to start with that, do a brain dump. Get a piece of paper or a Word doc out and just list out all the things that you're passionate about, all of the things that have come up in your life recently, the stories that you have that you can talk about. Write down your story, where you've come from, get it all out on paper, because there you go. You already have a whole list of things, inspiration to pull from your own life that you can use and create into content.
Yes, I love that. I did a whole episode on, like, finding, kind of trying to figure out what your spiritual gifts are. And I'm sure you have similar episodes like that, where, because I think, again, it's hard for people because we overestimate or we underestimate what our gifts might be. Like we talked about in the beginning, like we might have things that we're tapping into. We don't even recognize those as things we may be gifted at, or things that might be unique to us, or we just assume everybody can do this. Everybody has this sort of talent or whatever. So yeah, that's great advice. Do you think there's any, like, common misconceptions that you see with your clients where people are like, oh, I really thought it was going to be this way, but it's not like that at all?
You mean with spiritual gifts or business, or both?
Well, either way, either one. Like, misconceptions that people have where, they're like, oh, I thought that it might go this way, or I really anticipated something being more like this, but it's just not how I thought, or it's different, or it surprised me.
That's a really great question. I would say the first thing that comes to mind, and this is what we've spoken about too, is how subtle these messages are. Part of the process is really just attuning yourself to life and really attuning your channel to what is already going on in your life, because it's already there. All right. Like, a lot of these messages are already there. Take a look at your dreams. Take a look at the people who are coming into your life. Take a look at the mirrors that the universe is mirroring back to you, the situations, the things that are already coming up in your day-to-day life, because there is a rich story and a well of information that's already there for you to pull from. And when it comes to meditation and connecting with your spirit team, it may just be a few words or a subtle message that they give you for the day that's everything that you need, right? So it doesn't need to come in the form of some flashy, like, oh my God, I had a conversation with God in the shower this morning, and it was like this big, like this 3-day and 3-night
the clouds parted and
guru experience, and you don't need to go on the fancy ayahuasca retreat to have the spiritual experience, right? Like your life is spiritual. Your day-to-day life is spiritual. It's in the little things, the little subtleties, the little messages, the little signs that you're already getting.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love how you just are helping like phrase things and break them down, and you show up so unapologetically, and you're so unapologetically yourself. And I feel like that, without even trying, without even saying all the words that you're saying, I feel like just embodying that is such an inspiration, to me, and I think anybody that is listening, because I feel like you do that so well. You definitely put your money where your mouth is and show up, I think, exactly as you're explaining. And I
think the other, yeah. And I also want to give a business misconception too.
Ooh, good one. Okay.
Because there are so many people out there who are talking about, make $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month. And it's so easy. And like, look at me. And I've made all this money. And so people have this idea that it's going to be this, this super easy, simple, all of a sudden I'm going to have this cash in my pocket experience. And let me tell you, you are still running a business. Okay. Yeah. You are still running a business. And guess what? Being a business owner means, maybe I'm going to have to pay $6,000 in taxes for Q1. Maybe being a business owner means that I'm going to have to check my email on Saturdays just to if I don't have a virtual assistant, just to double check and make sure that my customers don't need anything. Like maybe being a business owner means that I'm going to have to show up even when I'm not feeling so great, and even when I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I think people forget that you're running a business. And think about it, like someone who's running a restaurant or a store, they have to show up every single day. They have to show up. They have to do the bookkeeping. That you have to do like the business admin stuff.
Right.
So
just because it's a spiritual business doesn't mean you get to like forego all of the mundane tasks.
Yeah. So just so I say that as a cautionary tale, because not everyone is cut out for business. And I think that's a hard truth that not everybody wants to hear. You have to have the energy levels to be able to handle it. You have to have the drive. You have to have the motivation. You have to be passionate about it. And if you're not, that's fine. Maybe this is a side hustle for you, and that's great. But you just can't have the expectation of like the money raining down from the sky on you just because you posted one
or
story on Instagram,
Yes. Or because it's a spiritual business that all of a sudden it's just gonna, if I'm aligned and I'm on track with what I'm supposed to be doing, it'll happen overnight.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can see why you are a mentor and a coach. I feel like I just got my own little coaching session there. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. This has been such a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
Before we go, do you want to share where everybody can find you and kind of what programs and things you're offering right now specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me, Emily the Mystic, emilythemystic.com. I'm mostly on Instagram and YouTube. I also have my own podcast called The Emily the Mystic Show, where I interview lots of amazing mystical guests and talk about all sorts of mystical topics. So that's a great portal into getting to know me and my world. And then if you are interested in the spiritual business mentorship, I absolutely have offers for that to be able to support you. So you can find me, send me a DM on Instagram. And right now I am running my Akashic Records certification, which is we haven't even talked about the records today in a ton of detail, but basically what it is, it's a modality that you can add to your toolkit as a spiritual business owner that's going to help you learn how to give messages and information to your client about the soul's journey. So if you're wanting to deepen your spiritual gifts, you want to help people understand their past lives, their karma, the resistances that they're going through in this lifetime, their childhood, all of that, the record certification teaches you how to do that for your clients, which can be a really great way to specialize your spiritual business if you are feeling maybe lost and unsure of what your next steps are as a business owner. So,
I love that. Yes. That's on my bucket list, is doing an Akashic Records reading with you specifically. Yes. And maybe we'll have to have you back on again and talk more deeply about Akashic Records.
I would love it.
That is not my area of expertise, so I would die to hear more from you. So thank you so much for being here, Emily. I really enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me on the show.
See you guys next time on Dare Me to Prosper.